Hey guys,
Tim,
how's it going?
how's the skiing?
Oh, it was great yesterday. Like, let us know. Today's more of a blooper day. Still nice.
Yeah.
Tim, where are you?
Hey guys. Well, at the moment I'm at Deer Valley, but I was at Alta yesterday.
Tim,
How's it going? Not bad.
how's the skiing?
Hi Sue. Hi Marilyn.
Okay. Hello there. Can you hear me? Hello there.
We can hear you, Sue.
Oh,
Hello, Sue and Marilyn.
there's up there. I don't know what that means. Okay. Now.
Sue, do me a favor and
Marilyn,
try to angle the screen down a little bit so that the camera can actually see you in Maryland.
Oh. Oh.
can you hear us? Sue, can
Yeah,
you
we can
hear
hear you.
us? No, I know, but can Sue hear us?
Mackenzie, I'll, or the background, the Pepsi music will, at some point, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go, Sue. We can hear you now. Can you hear us?
I wish I had never.
Yo, Perina,
Hello? Hello?
Can you see me?
you look pretty darn good for an older guy.
I can't wait a second. Oh, oh man, don't look so distinguished. Do you see me?
You bet.
I don't know how you see me. Why don't I see anybody? All right, I see Sue.
Okay. Okay. Get on and off. It was when we were talking. Okay. Okay. It's off. Okay. Now it should come back. Here, Sue. See if it comes back now. Because it's on now.
Yeah, we can
Clark,
hear you,
why don't you
Sue.
have a neck? Clark? Clark,
Maybe your volume needs to go up again now. Hello?
I
Hey,
hear
Sue, can you hear
Sue.
us?
See, I can't even, I don't know what I'm doing.
All right, turn your volume up a little bit again, maybe that's right. On the keyboard.
What do you want me?
Okay, Mackenzie, we can't hear you guys. I know you can hear us, but we're trying to see. It's off. No, it's
Can you hear me?
again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me through the computer. Okay. Awesome. Great. All right, Marilyn, let me know if you guys have issues again.
Wait, Sue, I just want to confirm that you can hear us.
Yeah, she can hear us.
I'm not so sure of
I
that,
just
Mackenzie. I'm not sure they weren't just hearing it over the phone. Sue, can you hear us?
Also like you. Okay. Can you hear
there we
me?
go. We can hear you now, Sue.
Okay,
Yeah, I can
good.
hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Just in the nick of time. That's why we log in early.
Can you hear me, Tim?
Yeah, we got you, Sue. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Here, I'll switch my view for a second.
Pardon me?
I'll switch my view for a second.
You're in Steamboat.
No, I'm in Deer Valley, actually.
Oh, looks like a great day.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's total bluebird day.
Yeah.
Oh, my legs are tired, so I'm ready for a break anyways.
Probably colder here than it is where you are.
It's beautiful here, so if it's cold there, then you're right.
Well, it was like it was about 40 degrees when I went to church this morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Warmer than Iowa.
It's warmer now, but it's not warm. I'm not touching anything.
He's gonna mute us if we talk.
He'll tell me when to unmute, he said. So.
All right, we're going to get started in about 1 minute, guys, so sit tight. All right, let's get going. Welcome everybody to Sunday at the Cedars. If you're watching on Zoom or if you are watching on YouTube Live, thank you so much for being here. My name is Mackenzie, and I've been a part of camp for nearly 2 decades now. And I'm currently serving as the Associate Director of camp. If this is your first time joining us here, a little backstory. This year, the foundation formed the Alumni Committee with the intention to create new touch points for all of you, alumni, current families, and new families to connect with Red Arrow. And very quickly, the decision turned to working on something like this, a live stream event where everyone, a part of the Red Arrow community, can come join and see some of the cool things and unique things that make Red Arrow truly special. So this is Sunday at the Cedars. We meet on the first Sunday of every month. If you want to get notified for future Sundays at the Cedars, feel free to go to our website, and under the community tab, there's a page called Sundays at the Cedars, and you can get emailed the link right before we go live each month. We're going to have a great discussion with you guys today. As many of you newer or older alumni know, and some of you newer may not know, we actually at one point had Pepsi come and film a commercial at Red Arrow. And we're going to watch that commercial together, bring in some of the people who were actually on that commercial. But before we do that, we're going to get a little bit of context on where and how this commercial actually came to be. Since it was before I was even born, we've got to bring in someone who definitely remembers the whole experience. And so just a quick note before I bring her up, if you guys have any questions throughout her talking or during the commercial airing here on Zoom, feel free to leave a question in the chat, either on YouTube Live or on Zoom, and I'll be sure to bring it up in our discussion after watching the commercial. And without further ado, I'd like to bring up Sue to start with bringing some context to how this commercial actually came to be. So, Sue, I just sent you an invite to unmute your mic. There we go. I can hear you. So, Sue, give us a little bit of a backstory on this.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here doing this. And where this all started was mid-July, I would say, 1976, on a weekday during the morning. We were in morning classes, and all of a sudden, this car drove up. I was in the office, and this car drove up, and 2 gentlemen got out of the car, and they had cameras around their neck, very, very expensive looking cameras. And I walked out and said, "Could I help you?" And they said, well, they gave me their card, their business card, and it was from BBD&O. And they said, "We are from a large advertising agency in New York, and we are here to look for a camp where we would like to film a commercial for our client, PepsiCo," which was Pepsi-Cola. "And would you be interested in doing something like this?" And I said, well, I don't know. I'd have to talk to my husband about it, but it sounds like we might be. And they said, well, we're looking at camps. We're not, And so they said how they found out about, or why they were in the North Woods, I should say, doing this, was that at BBD&O, there was someone affiliated with Camp Osoa, the girls' camp that was nearby at that time. And there was someone at Camp Osoa that had referred them to Osoa to do this. They had gone over to Camp Osoa and they decided they were not interested in doing it. So they sent them over to Red Arrow. So anyway, I said, well, let me talk to my husband. Bob was out teaching tennis on the tennis court. And so, well, where else would he be? And so anyway, I said, make yourselves at home. And they wanted to go and take a bunch of pictures. So they did. I went out and got Bob, and we went to talk to them then. And they explained that they were looking at several camps in the Northwoods for this at this point, and that they wanted to film a commercial that was a Parents' Day at camp. Now, this is not a boys' camp. It was a co-ed camp, supposedly. This is a very generic thing, very generic, and it was not going to feature Red Arrow in any way. The only thing about Red Arrow was going to be the site. And what they would do would be to bring in girls for this from a girls' camp. And it was Parents' Day, so they would also bring parents in. And these were going to be people that they would find to bring in. We didn't have to worry about anything but the boys and the staff for our part of it. So anyway, they said they would get back to us in a couple days and let us know if they were interested in doing it at Red Arrow. Well, it didn't take very long because I think it was before dinner that night they called back and said they wanted to do it at Red Arrow. And of course, we were very excited about this, but we didn't tell anybody. We hadn't said anything to anybody because we didn't want to tell people until we were, sure they were going to do it at Red Arrow. And so that's how it all got started. I don't know if you want me to go into any more of the particulars about this at this point, Mackenzie, or not.
No, that's great. Thank you, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, guys, here is the commercial.
A smile can wake the sun up to what your world could be. And with every brand new moment you're alive, you're feeling free. Make this day a celebration. Come and taste the Pepsi way. Life is what it should be when you have a Pepsi day. Come on, come on, come on and taste the Pepsi way. Come on, come on, come on and have a Pepsi day. Wrap a thirsty smile around it. Raise a Pepsi up and down it. Come on and have a Pepsi day. Come on and make this day a celebration. Come on and join the Pepsi generation. Come on, come on. Have a Pepsi day.
And that was it. And so where we're going to go into now is there are some Red Arrow alumni who are actually in that commercial. And then, Sue, I know you have several stories of interesting things that happened while on the shoot. And so my first question, bringing in some of the guys who were in the commercial, were Bob Perina, Matt LaCorn, Kip Jacobs. What was that experience like? Specifically, we'll start with you, Bob, filming a commercial for Pepsi.
Well, can you hear me all right?
We can hear you.
Oh, it ended up being far more lucrative than what I got paid that summer. That's for sure. Sorry, Sue. I can't help it. I mean, no. Anyway, I didn't know that would be a fringe benefit. Always exciting. It was definitely something you weren't expecting. It's kind of like Sue said. It sort of was under the cover of darkness. And all of a sudden, Sue is parading in a bunch of counselors going into the mess hall and sitting down with these folks and just talking to them, which I assume are the same people that showed up in the parking lot, Sue. But they were part of the advertising group, and I still don't think any of us really knew what was going on. And the only thing I really remember about being in the mess hall, being interviewed and having a Polaroid taken, which I thought that was the end of my career right there. But in any event, they took a Polaroid and then they asked me one question, and it was simply, what's your favorite soft drink? And that's when I knew I didn't know what I was doing, because they said 7-Up. So anyway, I said 7-Up, and they looked at each other and they smiled and laughed and said, well, you're an idiot, but we'll send your picture in anyway. So that was it. That's what I remember about the beginning of it. I'll let the other guys chime in. There's obviously a lot more as the chapter unfolds over the next 3 or 4 days, or however long they were there. But it was pretty exciting, but that's the initial memory I had.
Yeah, I'll ask Matt LaCorn the same question. What was it like being brought into filming this Pepsi commercial?
Mackenzie, can you hear me? I apologize. I've been having technical difficulties.
You're all right. I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Well, I was actually on a canoe trip when I guess when the group first arrived to start getting the staff together for the commercial, and we got back on a Wednesday, and we were told, I don't remember who picked us up, but we were told that they were filming a Pepsi commercial at camp, and I just assumed that I'd lost my opportunity because I was on a canoe trip. So we went down to the trip shack and unloaded the canoes and the packs, and we hung up all the wet baker tents, and I walked up to the quad, and I saw Bob talking to a group of people, and looked like they didn't look like parents and certainly weren't staff. So I said, this is my shot. Went and stuck my nose in the conversation, and ostensibly to tell Bob that we were back safely and had a great trip. And one of the individuals said, would you like to be in a commercial? And I looked at Bob, and Bob gave me the nod, the okay, and I said, sure. And that's how I got involved. So I was the third one to get selected. Obviously, Kip and Bobby were the first two, but that's how I got involved in the commercial.
I'm still amazed that you guys were able to do this during the summer with everything that was going on. Sue, talk to me a little bit about how you guys were able to incorporate a whole shooting schedule in camp's normal craziness.
Well, that's very interesting, because when we decided that this was all going to come about, and after they had chosen us, they came back and we sat down to, kind of map things out as to what it was going to be. And our very first thing was that camp is number one, and you're number two here. And we are going to go ahead with our program. And we had probably 100 kids that summer. And we're going to go ahead with our program, and you're going to have to work around us. Now, we will do whatever we can to accommodate you, but camp comes first. And they were very, very good about that. And they they brought a catering in for their meals. They were just there for the noon meal, actually. And we were able to work around things, because when they wanted to use the waterfront, we said, well, there's nobody on the waterfront basically between 12:15 and 2:30. So they could use the waterfront and do whatever they wanted down there then. And or we also said if they wanted to use some particular part of the quad, that we could schedule around that as well. And it worked out pretty well. There were some things that got in the way. Number one, we did start filming on a Wednesday, so I'm a little confused as to how Matt got in on Wednesday and it might have been a week later that it started. I'm not sure when they started the filming. But anyway, when it started, they came in, they said they would go to a girls' camp, and they went to Red Pine. The girls came from Red Pine, and they had auditions over there. Now, we had auditions at camp. Once they said that we were going to have the commercial there, they said we will have to set up for auditions. And Bobby mentioned about that, where he went into the rec hall, they took a shot of you, and there weren't any speaking parts in the commercial. So main thing was they were just looking at how photogenic you were for what they were trying to do. And a couple things that they told us before they did the interviews, they said that they would not pick anybody that had a bad complexion, because that was looked bad for their product. And they couldn't take anybody that was overweight, because that would look bad for their product as well. And they also told us, which we didn't tell the staff, that they wanted clean shaven guys. And so the guys that had facial hair didn't get picked. They wanted everybody sort of a clean cut look. So those were things that they did. Now, when they said they were going to come and do the commercial at Red Arrow, we told the staff first, and everybody was very, very excited. And then we told the campers, and we said, anybody that wants to be involved can go in and go through this audition, which I said was just really an eyeball thing, and taking one photograph to see how photogenic they were, and go from there. So they came in and they did this, and it took, I don't know, a couple hours maybe. And then when they decided who they wanted, they gave us a list, and we had to go and get permission from every one of the parents of the kids. I think they chose 8 boys and 3 staff. And so when they did this, we had to go to each one of those parents and get permission for their child to do this. And this is all over the phone then. You didn't have all these, fax and email, this kind of thing. So this was all done over the telephone, and that's kind of how that worked.
Yeah, that's awesome. Bob and Matt, talk to me a little bit about what it was like actually shooting and being in it during the day-to-day. I'd imagine those shooting days were pretty long. It looked like a blast, but talk to me a little bit of what that was like.
Bobby, I've got a funny story when I was thinking about this that involves Bobby. I thought the shooting was kind of tedious, to be honest with you. It's a lot more fun to teach water skiing than to sit there and do multiple takes, drinking a Pepsi. But I guess the one funny filming experience I had, it's the shot where Bobby made it into the commercial, and it's also the shot where I made it into the commercial. But they were filming, they wanted to film us drinking, and they instructed us on how to drink the product, and you had to spread your fingers. They used a special bottle, which I have. I apologize, I can't get my video up, but I actually have one of the bottles. It has no trademarks on it. It's got thick glass, and I've managed to keep it in spite of my wife trying to throw it away for about 50 years now. Keep the bottle, but they're sitting there with a camera in your face, and the director is saying, fingers look good, sun is shining through the bottle. They also wanted the bottle high, and they wanted to see a lot of bubbles in the bottle. And so, they've got the camera in your face. As Sue said, you don't have a speaking part, but you're on about your 6th Pepsi by this point. They've done about 6 takes of this. And then they want you to lower the bottle and smile at the camera. And so he's talking you through this, and Bobby, of course, being dutiful Bobby, is doing everything they're telling him to do. I, on the other hand, am raising the bottle. I've got good sunshine through the bottle. I'm blowing great bubbles, but I go to lower the bottle to smile in the camera, and I'm overcarbonated. I'm on my 6th Pepsi, and I've got way too much carbonation in my system, and I just belch. And I had befriended one of the cameramen in the filming crew, and he walked over to me and put his arm around my shoulder, and he said, "Well, I hope you got a lot of relief from that belch, because that's the most expensive burp you'll ever experience in your life." So as you'll see in the commercial, Bobby actually does lower the bottle, and he gives that great Bobby Perina smile. And mine, the bottle is still in my mouth, because I never managed to lower the bottle and smile in the camera. But that was my funny takeaway. But I found it to be a little bit tedious and less fun than being a counselor at camp. Bobby, how about you?
Well, actually, all I remember is LaCorn kept saying, "Makeup, makeup." He kept yelling at this guy, his cameraman friend. He said, "I need makeup," and LaCorn's sweating, sweat pouring off his brow, and he's blaming the bottle and the people and the sun. And geez, I'm looking at LaCorn, stop already. It's Pepsi, for God's sake. And he just said, "No, I need something to swipe my brow." Oh God. So anyway, that's what I remember of Matt. But what he's right on target as far as all the techniques so to speak, to drink a soda. But I remember, they're always yelling at people to come in and do certain things. So after Matt got his makeup, then the people came over and they would take a spray bottle and they'd spritz the bottle, like Matt was talking about carbonation, but the outside of the bottle had to sweat. They had to spray it and make it look like it was, streaming all this really cold beverage. So they did that all the time. And what people don't realize too, Matt said he's on his like 6th Pepsi, but they didn't waste any money on bringing you new bottles. They just refilled the old one. They just recapped it. They didn't give you 100 cases of Pepsi. They just recapped the damn thing. It's a multi-million-dollar, commercial, and we're getting the same bottle. So I don't know. I thought that was a little weird, but Matt's right. I mean, the bottles were like thick thick Pepsi bottles, like you see someone with thick lenses in their glasses, kind of like what Clark's wearing right now, real 2-inch thick ones. And it was like, I don't know, that's what suited everything the best. But there's even more to all this nonsense, but I'll stop right there. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's complete fabrication about the makeup too.
Oh, it is so unfabricated.
It took you 50 years to come up with that story. Complete fabrication.
I think the thing why they kept refilling those bottles, they were made in Germany, and very expensive. I've got one too in my place up north, but I can't remember. But those bottles were very, very expensive to make. That's why they were refilling them.
Man, I didn't know that. Shoot, well,
they were made in Germany.
That's to know. Well, that's all right. That's okay. You got the right people. Got the bottles. That's good.
Hey, Mackenzie, if I can butt in.
No, and the other thing,
come on in.
The other thing you'll notice is that in the commercial, the only people that were drinking those sodas were you guys, and because they could not let anybody under 18 drink the Pepsi on screen, because it would like harmful. Our product is harmful could be harmful to children. However, but 18 was the age that before they would let you drink it on stage or on film.
So yeah, Mackenzie, I was actually the youngest kid. This is Stephen Lemon. I was the youngest kid in camp that year, and Kip Jacobs was my counselor. I did the screening test as well, and they liked something. I don't know what it was. I think I ended up on the editing room floor, but I did the. I did. I think Barry was in there as well, my brother Barry. But in between Don Beebe put me on the hook that year, I was able to actually get a screen test in. And I remember the most exciting part, though, as a young kid, was the casting crew spread. They had their own spread on a table of food, peaches and plums and everything just piled high. So I spent most of my time during the shoots going back to that table while all the crew was out, filling my T-shirt, taking it, I had a little underground operation, taking it to the manor. And I believe it was Mark Lamberson who was a mastermind in that entire thing. I don't know if you guys remember that camper. But it was tedious. Bobby's right. I remember the shooting being very tedious. I think we missed Aguagata that year.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't.
At the same time? Okay, so I conflated that. But I do remember cheering on Kip as he was pushing that ball into the into the goal. But it was a lot of fun. It was very exciting. I'm not sure we ever saw a check, Sue. So we might be coming after you. But it was a good time.
Well, and they started shooting on a Wednesday morning, and it was a gorgeous day. They came in and they were shooting. But Bob made very clear when they started that day, because of course Wednesday night was cabin night, he made very, very clear that they were going to be done by 4:45, because that's when cabin night started. And this was not going to interfere with camp. Well, 4:45 came around and those cameras were still rolling. And like you said, I think everybody was, take after take after take. People were getting very tired of it. This is the first day now. And they were going to be there for 3 days doing shooting. And those cameras were still going at 4:45. And Bob went out and he said, okay, cameras off. Day is done. These boys and the staff are going to cabin night, and that's it. That was the end of the shooting for that day. Well, Bob said no. So that was kind of interesting too. But then the next interesting thing is that Thursday morning they came and the sky was, it wasn't bad, but it was kind of overcast, misty out. I guess it wasn't raining, but it wasn't terrible weather. They said, nope, we can't shoot in this weather, but we're going to sit around and we're going to wait because it may clear off. And so they sat there until noon. It didn't clear off. We went about our business, of course. And then the next day it was the same thing on Thursday. Couldn't shoot on Thursday again. And so that took us then into Friday and Saturday. And we were very lucky that we didn't have anything special that weekend because they were there all day Friday and all day Saturday. Friday was a gorgeous day again. And so they were able to shoot then. Oh, wait a minute, no, it was Wednesday. No, Thursday and Friday were bad. And they came back then Saturday was the next day they shot. It was on Saturday and Sunday.
So
Do you guys remember when the, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that we were not allowed to drink, I guess, carbonated drinks or Coca-Cola or Pepsi, I guess it was, on camera. But they had no problem plying us with not Pepsi, but Mountain Dew. The kids those of us who were getting tired from all the shooting, I think they found a way to keep us energetic and cheering on the sidelines for the P-ball game. I found that pretty funny.
Do you guys remember when it aired? And Sue, do you remember the actual day that it aired? And
I do.
Did it air on something special or anything like that?
I certainly do. But there's a whole lot of stuff before that we can have fun with, unless you want me to go right into that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. What else do you have for interesting things that happened during this process?
Well, it was this I thought was really, really funny. They came back, like I said, on Saturday. They shot all day and everything was worked out really well. And they said, well, we'll be back tomorrow morning and we will finish up, shortly after lunch tomorrow, they hoped. Well, that was Sunday morning. And Bob said, no, you won't be back tomorrow morning. We have chapel in the morning and everybody in camp goes to chapel. And they were like, okay. And we said, you can come back and shoot an hour before that, but 11:15, that's it. And until 12:30, no. And you're welcome to come to our chapel if you want, but there will be no shooting at that time. They were upset on that one.
So that's a good question, Sue. Did they have terms for you? Did you guys have a contract that you signed with them? I mean, this was like kind of a big deal.
Yeah, they did. But the agreement was that they were not going to interfere with camp.
That was part of the contract. They wrote that in.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They paid camp actually $500 a day for user fee or location, whatever. I don't know what it was, but
that's all.
That's all. Well, we took that money and redid the canoes because this was a special. But anyway, so that was that. Well, then on Sunday, at 12:30, they were there and took their people and off they went. Well, we were playing Highlands that afternoon in softball, and of course, one of the kids involved was the only kid that was the pitcher for the team, and he was darn sick and tired of this by then. And the coach, for whoever was coaching the team, I don't remember. It was one of the Allen boys. It was either Darren or Scott. I can't remember which one it was. He's the blonde kid in the video. But anyway, the coach came and said, we got to have this kid. Got to have him. And so we went to him, and he was almost in tears because he was told he couldn't go. Or that he wasn't told that. He was just part of the group, so he figured he couldn't go. So we went to him. We said, Scott or Todd, whichever one it was, do you want to do this or do you want to go and pitch softball? And his dad was a coach at Evanston with Bob, so the kid was a baseball coach. So the kid was good at what he was doing. And he said, oh, I want to go to the game. So we said, well, just scurry off and go. So he just left. We didn't tell anybody. And he wasn't one of the main characters on the thing, but he was in it a couple times, the blonde boy that you see a couple times. But so that was kind of an interesting thing too. But when it was first shown, they notified us, and it was in September. They had initially told us it would probably be September when this aired. And it was for the first time it was ever shown was Saturday night on the World Series game. So how was it was so exciting. And Bob and I were at a wedding reception, and we went into the bar and spent most of it was actually Dave Johnson's wedding reception. And we went into the bar and sat there and waited for our commercial to come on because we were so excited about the whole thing. It was really neat. And I think that another kind of interesting thing about this commercial was that at the time, Coke and Pepsi were in almost a war for their audiences. And Coke was actually winning this competition at this point in time. And their commercials, this was when commercials were starting to go off in all kinds of different directions and getting very creative. And at that time, Coca-Cola had a commercial with Billy Joel singing on a mountain or something. And they had a kind of little catchy jingle. And we didn't know it at the time. Well, they did. The guys told us, some of the people that were working there at the time said that they were doing this new series for Pepsi-Cola. And this was going to be something totally different from what they'd ever done. And ours was either the first or the second commercial that they were doing in this particular series. And if you remember the commercial now, it was Have a Pepsi Day. And that was the new tune. And the whole thing that you heard in the background was their new thing. And they were pushing a commercial with younger people and a lot more action. And the other commercial that they had made for this Have a Pepsi Day, and there were many, because this went on for several years, this Have a Pepsi Day. But the other one was a skateboard thing. And in some ways, it was a lot like our commercial, because I've watched that one too. The interesting thing is that the jingle itself, that is being sung by the Beach Boys. And so that was kind of, I guess, their answer to Billy Joel and the Mountain, whatever. But anyway, this particular series was credited for giving Pepsi a real push up at that time, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, that is super interesting. Bob, one of the questions we got is you mentioned that you did make a little bit of money from this. How much did you make? What was that like? Was it a royalty deal? I mean, talk a little bit about those terms.
Oh, that's a great question. Let me backtrack a little bit. The Pepsi commercial is how I recruited Clark to come to camp. I just said, hey, come to camp, you'll be in a commercial. And he said, no. I said, no, shit, really? You really will be? And he said, really? I said, absolutely. You just got to grow a little hair back and you'll be all right. And he said, oh, I can't do that. I said, well, forget about camp then, Clark, because you can't get in if you don't have hair on your head. That's a true story. But he came anyway, and the rest is history. And because I felt bad about him not getting in future Pepsi commercials, I shared some of my, residual checks with him down the line. But, that's another story too. But going to Sue's point, I don't know, Matt can speak to this too. If I remember, and a lot has to do with the time of day that the commercial is aired. There was actually there's like a 30-second version and a 1-minute version of the commercial. So when the commercial came on, you prayed it would go 60 seconds because it was a larger paycheck. And you prayed it was during the World Series because there were more eyeballs on it. So it was fun. And you just, you never knew. And all of a sudden, a paycheck would show up and it would tell you when it was shown and how much you made and that sort of thing. I think all together, soup to nuts, and Matt chime in because I'm a little foggy on this. I think it came close to, maybe $5,000, something like that, after it was all said and done, with how many times it aired. And Sue, I don't know if you recollect when it sort of ran its course. It started, I was going to say in October, because that was the first time I was aware of seeing it, but in September, I don't know, did it go until?
No, it would be October, because like I said, the first time they showed it, because they called us and told us it was the World Series, so it would be October.
Okay, so it was, I would say, again, it was about $5,000 in that neighborhood. And I mean, guys, I was living in a fraternity at the time, so that money left my pocket so fast, my head spun around. And of course, when you're sitting in a fraternity TV room and there's 14 guys in there and the TV comes on and your face comes up, everything's on the house from there on. You're paying for just about all the subs and beer they can drink. So my $5,000 never made it past college. Sorry, guys, but that's just the reality. Now, I will say one thing, and Sue alluded to it. This was sort of, the start of Pepsi sort of clawing their way back. If you had owned one share of Pepsi stock back in 76? Something like, you fast forward to now, that share is worth, that one share is probably been quintupled, and that's just one share. So you can do the math from there. Now, unfortunately, they didn't give us stock share, stock grants for being in the commercial. I wish they had. I would have gladly done that. But in any event, Pepsi's done extremely well. So I'd like to say it was because of Red Arrow that Pepsi is on the map today. So I'm going to go with that, Sue. We'll just say that.
Well, that the little boy. Well, no, go to Matt first. I want to find out what his thing was.
So I don't recall, Bobby, to answer your question, what I was paid. I do think that we became members of the Screen Actor Guild, and as a result of this, and I got a little card out of that. It was probably a little bit more than Sue paid me when I was a cookie, but I don't really recall. But what I do remember is the first time I saw the commercial, and it's interesting because I was watching. It wasn't the World Series. I was watching Brian's Song, and as you all know, that's based on Gail Sayers' 1970 autobiography, I Am Third. And what was interesting about it is Bob introduced me to I Am Third, as you also recall, that is Gail Sayers' autobiography based on God is First, Others Are Second, and I Am Third. And Bob used that book every year for one of his chapel talks, and one of my favorite chapel talks, and that's a book that I read to our campers every summer. So I thought it was interesting that was the first time I saw it. I guess I'm in the minority. I would not attribute Pepsi's comeback to any appearance I made in a commercial. When you look at some of the other superstars that Pepsi's had in their commercials, I have a feeling, they got a little bit more juice out of those commercials than this one. But anyway, I did see it on live TV. To answer Tim Lutz's question, it was network back then, and it happened to be during the movie Brian's Song.
And I could be wrong about this, but someone told me in Chicago, somewhere along the Dan Ryan, or I don't know, they saw that little girl who was at the very end of the commercial. She was on a billboard. So that is another advertising avenue that we never, I don't know, Matt might end up in a lot of them, or Kip, but not me. But there was some billboard material from the residual, or from the excess advertising other than the commercial, that went on billboards somewhere in and around the Chicago area. That's what I was told.
Well, the little boy that was in there, quite a bit, that you saw 3 times, I think, with the animal and hugging the parent and all this kind of stuff.
Eric Wentz, is that what his name was?
Ricky Wentz.
Ricky Wentz.
I tried to contact him to get him involved in this too, but it didn't quite work out. But anyway, his father was a fireman in Chicago. He was from Chicago. And it turned out that the residuals for Ricky paid for his whole college education.
Well, he wasn't drinking beer at the time, so that's a whole different thing.
Oh.
Hey, at the other end of the pay scale, if you didn't make it in and you weren't a star and you were just sort of an extra, I asked my parents once, how much did we ever make anything on that commercial? And my dad's like, I can't remember if we did. This was years later. And I found a Social Security statement, mine, and there's a bunch of zeros in the 70s. But in 1976, apparently I made $200 as a cast member, which is exactly what I made 10 years later as Stable Boy, Sue.
Sue, why does this keep coming back to counselor compensation? I don't know. This whole commercial starting to. Hey, I still do have my first letter of telling me how much I made. I thought there was a decimal point that was wrong, quite honestly, but
go ahead. Go ahead. One of the questions we got, made me scratch my head too a little bit here. And it came from Colin. And let me try to pull up the exact frame here. There is a
to what your world could be.
Let's see.
And with every brand new moment you're alive, you're feeling free.
That's a skunk.
That is
because we play with those at camp all the time. That's
right.
Standard activity.
So did you guys?
It's a skunk. It's a stuffed one.
That's a skunk.
Well, we used
It's
to have-
live.
No, it was live, whatever it was. I'm not sure it was a skunk, but we had that cage outside of cabin F or wherever it was. Remember that we used to have some animals in there sometimes?
that was the nature thing. Yeah, that's a skunk.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, whatever.
So they just saw a skunk in the nature cabin and decided to implement it into the commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Actually, that brings up a good question. Sue, did they use props from camp itself? Did they use our push ball and our canoes and
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of our
that's
stuff?
all our stuff. Yeah. In fact, I think that was part of the reason why they chose Red Arrow, because they came and they could see that there's all this stuff that we were doing. Whereas at the girls' camps, I don't think it would have been quite as active. I'm not sure. But all the things that you saw there were from Red Arrow. Yeah. And well, here's another interesting thing. And they on Sunday, the main thing that they were going to do was a cookout on the quad, which never made the commercial. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, there was this cookout on the quad, and they filled that. Remember where we kept the basketballs in that big green trough? They filled that with ice and Pepsi. I mean, it was just crammed with Pepsi. And then they had hamburgers and bratwurst and all this food, just tons and tons of food. And I don't know if that's when they were doing their lunch as well. But anyway, they were supposed to do this cookout scene that never got done. Well, when they left on Sunday, they left all this food and, of course, all the Pepsi there. And so for Sunday night cookout, we moved it to the quad, but we'd never had it on the quad before. It was always, remember, down by the lakeshore. And boy, did we have the best cookout we ever had, I think. As much Pepsi as anybody wanted. We didn't care if they weren't 18, they could drink it. And so that was how kind of all ended up when they left. Quite an experience.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we take off, we're going to play through the commercial one more time as kind of the sign off. But before we do, Bob, Matt, Sue, any other interesting things that you want to bring up? What did you get out of the experience? Just overall thoughts on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's do it again. We can do a version. I don't know if Bobby, if we'd appear in that commercial or not. No, it was a lot of fun. I'd be interested to know down in New Orleans where we do a lot of filming of movies. A lot of my friends, rent out their houses for these movies, and the discussion, they're making pretty good money doing it, but I think most of them would say it's so disruptive they probably wouldn't do it again. I'd be interested in Sue's perspective, or anyone else who's kind of running camp now, whether if the opportunity arose, they would do it again.
Oh, I definitely would. In fact, it would be so much easier now. Here's another thing. Back then, of course, we didn't, like I said, we didn't have the computer, email, fax, any of that kind of stuff. You had a landline. You didn't even have your cell phones. So that was very, very difficult because they came in and took over the office, and they were, of course, on the phone all the time. And I mean, I just couldn't even go in the office. And this was a problem because at that point in time, you didn't have a lot of food salesmen that came around and got their orders. You did the ordering over the phone for much of our food. And I had to get in and order food.
So wouldn't it have been a party line too still at that point? I think we were still in a party line
too. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
So, the one thing I remember, I was my fourth year camp. And I remember the audition and the rec hall and the Polaroid, as Steve talked about. And then I do have a recollection of you and Bob being quite tense at times. Like, I remember the vibe of the concern about protecting camp versus getting this darn commercial shot, and that there was a lot of tension around that. I really do have a memory of that. And I remember the cookout thing and the quad. Those are the three things I remember about it being a camper not involved in the commercial at that time. So anyways.
I kind of like to offer that what I remember was people were standing around watching. And so all the time they kept saying, clear the background, particularly when they were up on the quad area, because it was something fun to watch to see what was going on. But
I have a real funny one on that. It was when they were doing that canoe stuff down there where you saw the kids in the canoe and the gal at the end. Well, they were doing that shot. And they must have done that a million times, and everybody was standing on the pier. They were filming from there and just coaching from there, the whole thing. And all of a sudden, this one guy stood up there with his megaphone. It said, "Would you please clear that little old lady out of the background?" And it was Grace, the cook. She was going from her cabin up to the kitchen, and she was standing there watching the whole thing. Get that little old lady out of the background. It was hysterical.
I also can remember that the commercial took place during the Canadian, and so I took Fred out of town. So everybody should be thanking me for taking Fred up to Canada.
Thank you.
I would definitely do it again. There were stressful things about it, but it was just, I don't know, a lot of fun and a good memory. And I don't know, something, I thought it was sort of special.
Absolutely. Bob, final thoughts for you?
Oh, it was a wonderful experience. The funny thing is, you don't really know at the time it's happening, what kind of memory it's going to create down the road. And the fact that you'd be talking about it almost 50 years later is pretty extraordinary. So really, I mean, we wouldn't be all talking about it if it weren't for Sue and Bob. I mean, they let him in the driveway, and then it kind of was like a virus just crept into camp, and then there we were. But I think it was a heck of a great time. I mean, we got to meet some new people, and I thought it was pretty funny though when they would bus in all these people. I don't even know where did they all stay? I mean, did they stay at a hotel?
I think that the whole Pepsi group took over. I think it was Dillman's. They all stayed at Dillman's, and they rented the whole thing. Just took it over. Now the other people, they brought people in from town for parents, and I don't know how they found those. The girls all came from Red Pine.
Okay, I
think Red Pine was another camp that they looked at, but just knowing Red Pine and its manicured look and everything, I can understand probably wouldn't choose that. I mean, it's a lovely camp, but it just isn't quite as campy as Red Arrow.
Yeah.
Right. One thing one thing they were very impressed with were the cabins. And there's not any shot of a cabin in there, but that was one thing when they came in and were initially looking at the thing, they took a lot of pictures of the cabins. So I don't know, but I think they just were looking for something a little bit more rustic.
Well, I don't know if you remember, and maybe Matt and Sue, you have a recollection of this. I don't know, but the guy from BBD&O that was sort of heading up the whole thing, he was a knockoff of Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws. The guy looked exactly like him with the beard, the glasses, the whole 9 yards. That's the thing I remember about the commercial is that guy. And every time I see Jaws, I think of the commercial. So I don't know. You can put 2 and 2 together. That's all.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Matt, any final thoughts for you?
No, I mean, I shared them. And the one thing in the sphere of small world, my brother, who's Red Arrow camper and counselor, has befriended and stayed a very close friend of one of the Red Pine counselors who was in the commercial. She lives in Minocqua, but has a home in the Bahamas where he has a home, and they became very good friends accidentally, and have remained friends. And she was reflecting on the commercial as well, directly with Parker. So it's a small world, but a great time. I just wish we and like Bobby said, it's great to have the commercial to look back on. I needed a haircut, Bobby. I need to look as clean cut as you. I'm glad, Sue. I'm glad, Sue, that I did not have, apparently didn't have a terrible complexion. If that was one of the prerequisites. And Sue, I'll make this comment. At that year, I was still 17 years old. So apparently they allowed me to drink a lot of Pepsi and violated that law. But maybe they didn't know because I was on the staff that I was 17 years old. Probably saw me at the Dinkum one night and thought that I was over 18. So
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Thanks for being a part of the conversation, Matt, Bob, Sue, Stephen.
That's a
and
great.
Thank you.
And guys, we're gonna put this up on YouTube. So I think there'll be a lot more people who are gonna watch this in retrospect. So we'll get the word out.
Yep. And
Mackenzie, just a comment before
go ahead,
you share it
Brandon.
again, if you don't mind. I've really enjoyed this. I mean, this is exactly what our alumni group is hoping for. I mean, what a great bonding session. And yeah, Bobby's having a little bit of trouble with his memory. And Matt, I haven't seen you in a long time, but I'll tell you what, your voice is exactly the same. And yet, Perina is responsible for me going to Red Arrow Camp. He did not promise me a Pepsi commercial. I did have hair back in 76 and 77. But you talk about superstars in the whole kind of Pepsi commercial era. So we got some RAC superstars in this commercial. And even though that commercial is 48 years old, it's powerful. It lacks the Mackenzie Beebe high definition of the modern era, but it's a powerful message with some powerful people in it. And this has really been great. So I thank you for those that put this together.
Yeah. Ditto that. It was a great time. Thank you, Mackenzie, and everybody else.
Yeah. And with that, we'll play you guys out with the commercial one last time. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
A smile can wake the sun up to what your world could be. And with every brand new moment, you're alive, you're feeling free. Make this day a celebration. Come and taste the Pepsi way. Life is what it should be when you have a Pepsi day. Come on, come on, come on and taste the Pepsi way. Come on, come on, come on and have a Pepsi day. Wrap a thirsty smile around it. Raise a Pepsi up and down. Come on and have a Pepsi day. Come on and make this day a celebration. Come on and join the Pepsi generation. Come on.
We'll see you guys next month for Sunday at the Cedars. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mackenzie.
you.
Thanks, everybody. Well done.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Let me get rid of. I didn't realize Steve Little was